Hello Year 7s and welcome to your very first flute lesson with me, Mrs. Gonçalves. This is really exciting and I can't wait for you to start on the flute. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about the flute itself, about its history, how it's played, the different parts and everything, so you have a better understanding of what you're getting into. Then we're going to try and make the first sounds on the flute, and then you just need to keep working at it at home, and you're going to get better and better every time. So let's start by talking a little bit about the flute then. So I've got my flute here. So with you, you should always have your flute, your vermouth book, this one here, and a pencil. That'd be fantastic. So always make sure you have those three things with you. So you might have, so this flute is made out of metal, and usually flutes are made out of metal. They can be made out of gold, silver, different materials, and you might have one which we call the Nouveau flute, which are great flutes to start with, and they are the black ones. So whatever I say in relation to my flute, it applies to any flute that you have, okay? So I know this it might look a little bit different than yours, but that's totally fine, and it's the same mechanism, the same notes, the same sound, okay? Just bear that in mind. Now, the flute is a really ancient instrument, and the very first ones that were found were actually made out of bone. I know. Then they started making them with wood, and now these days, in the modern days, the flutes are made out of metal usually. Okay, so you might still see. In fact, I've got some wooden flutes at the back here, so you might still see people playing on wooden flutes. I actually like the wooden flutes a lot. I think they have a really mellow sound, but I mean, obviously I love my shiny flute as well. So that's a little bit. So these wooden flutes, for instance, they were used about 300 years ago. These are copies of those instruments from 300 years ago. Now, in terms of the flute itself, different flutes come with different cases. So this is my case. It doesn't really matter which case it comes with. So that's where you keep your flute safe, okay? And if you're not playing your flute, then you should keep it in its case, just to avoid any accidents, you know, any siblings, younger siblings picking it up and damaging them or things like that. So always keep your flute safe in its case. And as you probably noticed, the flutes come in three parts. Okay, so they look quite small when you first open the case, but then when you put it all together, then it becomes a longer instrument. Okay, so the very first part that we're going to work with is called the hair joint. Okay, so this is where this is the hole here, this is the lip plate, and this is where you blow to make a sound. Okay, so that's the hair joint. Just going to put it on the side here. Now, the next part is called the body. Okay, so this is where most of the keys, and these are called keys, most of the keys are. All right, so that's the body. And then finally we have the smallest one, which is the foot joint. So it has a few keys as well, and it's basically the end of the flute. Now, the way I'm just going to put it together just for now. You don't need to. Just want to show you how the keys work, how the sound, how to make a sound and all that. So I will explain how to put it together in your second or third lessons. Okay, so don't worry about putting it together for now. Now, the flute, as I said before, so you have to blow into it. Okay, so you blow, you put it right under your lip, and then you just blow straight across. And then the notes are produced by moving your fingers. Right, so that's how the flute works. One thing that I've already forgot to mention is the flute belongs to, and you've probably heard already, different families of instruments that you can find in an orchestra. So the flute belongs to the woodwind family of instruments. These are instruments that are made out of wood and that are blown into. Now, I explained the bit about the flute being made out of metal, but ages ago being made out of wood, so that explains why the flutes still belong to the woodwind family of instruments. Now we're going to talk a little bit about posture. That means how you stand when you're playing the flute. So ideally, I'd like for you to stand when you're playing the flute, but I understand that sometimes that's not possible, so you might have to practice sitting down. So you should also know how to play your flute sitting down. When I'm playing in an orchestra, for instance, I'm sitting down, so I need to know, how to do it properly as well. So regarding the standing position, always make sure that both feet, and this is going to sound so obvious, but it's important that I say it, okay? So both feet on the floor, really grounded, really stable. They should be slightly apart, and then your upper body should just be quite relaxed. Now, when you're holding the whole flute up, let me just put it together one more time, as you saw before, your arms are up, your flute should be parallel to the floor, so it shouldn't be too high, and it should definitely, you shouldn't leave it to rest too much. Okay, so nice and parallel to the floor. Obviously, as you can see, there's nothing supporting the weight of the flute, and yes, the flute is fairly light, but when you start practicing it for longer periods, then it gets a little bit heavy. So the more you practice, the better you become at holding your flute and not having that much pain. So you will feel a little bit of pain, in your arms, maybe on your neck, but we'll do every lesson, at the start of the lesson, we'll be doing some stretches, some warm-ups to help you with that as well. So this is, for now, this is all you need to know about the flute, and next we'll be trying to make a sound, your first sound on the flute, which is very exciting. Right, we're going to carry on and make sure that you have your head joint in your hand, okay, just the head joint, so the one with a hole in it. Great. Now, something that is really, really important is that make sure that the opening of the flute, so this side of the flute, is facing your right hand side. Now, when you're looking at me, this might be on the other side, so make sure that your right hand is the one that this faces to, okay? Now, so this is the hole of the flute, and as you can see, there are two edges to it, this one and that one. Okay, so the one closest to you, this one here, I'm going to show you a little drawing to make it clearer. So this is the one that is going to sit right under your bottom lip. Okay, so as you can see, this is the one closest to me, so this is the one that's going to sit right under my lip. Okay, So that's where I'm going to place it. Move it to your mouth, and the flute always comes to you. You don't go to the flute, otherwise you start tensing your neck and getting neck pain, and we don't want that. So edge of the hole there, right under my lip. So exactly where it starts to become normal skin again, that's where the flute should sit. Okay, so I'm going to place it there. There you go. There we are. And I always need to make sure that it's there, okay, that I can feel it. All right. Now, in terms of, and by this moment, I can imagine that you're all trying to play, which is fantastic. But just listen a little bit longer, okay, before you try it, if you can. Now, in terms of the actual blowing, it's nothing to do with whistling. Okay, so if you can't whistle, you'll be able to still play the flute. Trust me. Okay, I can't really whistle very well. So put it under your lip. Make sure the edge of the hole is there. You can see. Now, you're going to blow as if you're blowing through a straw. Okay, so you're going to make quite a tiny hole with your mouth. So we don't want this. We don't want this. Just quite, the mouth should be quite flat, and you're blowing as if there's a straw in your mouth. Okay, so you're making a tiny hole in the center of your mouth, like this. Let's try that again. Okay, I'm just going to show you a little drawing. So that's, there we go. This is the embouchure hole. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't told you what embouchure means. So embouchure is a really fancy French word which means how you shape your mouth to play a wind instrument. So it can be used not just for the flute but other wind instruments. So it's basically the shape of your lips. Okay. So you've got the lip plate, the embouchure hole. So this is the edge I was talking about. So this is the one closest to you. This is where your lip's gonna. So this is where it will sit on your lip. Okay. Now, as you can see here, there's the lip there, the edge of the hole that I'm talking about. So there's two edges, that one and this one. So the one closest to you is going to sit right under your bottom lip, as you can see. Okay. Now, when you're, oh, and this other picture here is when I was talking about the straw. So as you can see, this is your normal lip opening, and this is what you should do when you play the flute. Okay, so it looks almost like a straw, doesn't it? The width. Fantastic. So let me just stop sharing that. Oh, and these are the parts of the flute, but we talked about that already. Fantastic. Okay, so when you're trying to make a sound, make sure that you actually blow, you really blow into the flute. Otherwise, nothing will come out probably. So it can't be too thin. Okay, when you're blowing. So blow quite fast. If you go, nothing will come out. Okay. Now the other thing you need to try. There are quite a few things that you need to try, but the first one that comes to my head is when you're placing the edge of the hole right under your lip, you might want to experiment a little bit with rolling your flute in and out to find that perfect spot where everything works. Okay, so for me, I have to roll my flute in a little bit for it to sound really clear. If I do it too rolled out, then I don't have contact with the edge of the hole, so then nothing comes out really. So that's the first thing. Something else to think about, which would really help you, is if you can practice using a mirror. So I've got one here, for instance. So if I place this in front of me, that would really help me find the correct position for the flute. So that's something to consider if you have a standing mirror. The other thing you can do is just to pause the video, and you can go and try it, you know, anywhere in at home when you're practicing. Fantastic. Now, the next thing, and before I move on, I just need to tell you that making a sound on the flute is probably the hardest bit. Okay, so don't feel disheartened if it doesn't come out straight away. To be honest with you, I think I can say for sure that 80%, 90% of students don't manage to get a sound straight away. Okay, so it takes a little bit of time. It takes a lot of patience, actually, and so be really patient and kind with yourselves, because it is difficult at first. Okay, so just keep trying, and keep trying different things, experiment, and you will find your own way of making a beautiful sound. I'm sure of that. Now, moving on, and I want to talk about two techniques that I think might help you achieve exactly that, so make sure that you make a nice sound. So the first one is, I'm just going to show you. So I would like you to cover your top lip with your bottom lip. So you're going to do this. Okay, and then you're going to place the edge of the hole, that edge that we've talked about, the one closest to you, you're going to place it right under your bottom lip, like this. And then you're just going to slide down your lip, and it should stay in the perfect spot to make a really nice sound. Okay, so one more time. So cover your top lip with your bottom lip, and then like that. Okay. And that should work really nicely. Fantastic. The other thing I'd like you to try is, if you tuck your lips into the hole completely like this, so you should feel the hole right in the center of your mouth. So like that. I hope you can see that. So I'm really tucking my lips into the hole. And now all you're going to do is roll out your flute. Can you see the hole? Now that's exactly where it should be for most people. Okay, so that's another way of doing it. And just pause the video if you need to do that again. At any point, if you need to pause the video and go through any of the steps that we've done, please do so, because that's really helpful. Okay, now the next thing I want to talk about is, and don't worry about the word homework, but at home I'd really like it for you to try and practice at least 4 times, and especially in the first few weeks it's really important that you practice regularly. Okay, I'm not expecting you to practice for long periods of time. Nope, just regularly, as many times as you can during the week. Okay, so most of you, and in fact the majority of you, will be struggling to make a sound at this point, and that's absolutely normal. I really want you to believe in me when I say that, because it is true. So if you are okay with the sound, you might want to try and experiment with your flute and see how many different sounds you can make with a head joint for now. Okay, so that's basically your homework. Try to make a sound and just have fun with it and experiment with it a little bit. And remember your posture, nice and tall, standing, both feet on the floor, slightly apart. And that's it. I hope you have a lot of fun practicing your flutes, and I will see you next week for another lesson. Enjoy, bye bye.